So, welcome to Walpole United WFC.
Good evening and welcome to Walpole United WFC with me, Matt Crane. Delighted tonight. We've got John and we've got Reese. John, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, mate. Not too bad yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. And obviously, welcome to the show, Reese. Your first time on a Tuesday show. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. So tonight, then, we've got a little bit of everything. We've chatting to fans from different clubs. We've got obviously Reese who will be giving us a West Ham point of view. Myself and John, sort of Man United. We've got Shahan later on in the show, Bristol, and also Mike as well, chatting Crystal Palace. So a little bit of everything. Lots of comments in as well. We'll get to those shortly, which is good to hear. We'll start then, obviously, with yourself, Reese. We'll start with West Ham. Sort of looking at it this year then, currently sat in 7th with 13 points. You've got 12 goals scored, 11 conceded. In comparison, obviously, last year they finished 9th with 15 points. So halfway through the season already, and you're not far off last season's tally. What are your thoughts then on season so far this year?
Massive improvement on last. I think this year the biggest improvement's been the mentality of the group. We're a lot more together as a team. They work hard for each other. The managers really implemented his playing style on the team. I actually like what we've got back to, because we've got back to what we was in the first season under Matt, where we was quite a ruthless team to play, hard to beat, and our results speak for themselves. You know, we've won and drawn more than we've lost for a reason, and I'm looking forward to the game on Sunday, where a year ago I would have been crapping myself about playing Man United at home, but luckily now we can get back to what we were before, and look forward to these type of games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously we're talking about sort of what's changed there. Then obviously last year I think conceded 39 goals, whereas this year it seems a lot better then. If we go all the way back then to 2021, to the start of it around January time, obviously, like I mentioned last year, he was sort of, just changed managers. Ollie came in, you were fighting relegation. What do you think has been sort of the key thing? Obviously, is it players? Has it been the manager? Or is it sort of a mixture of both in terms of last year to this?
The summer was what made the difference for us. We went from, at the start, you always could, so in that January to May period, you could always tell that Ollie's had a good system, knew what he was doing. However, in some positions, he didn't have these type of players, and that's what was costing us a bit. I remember the game where we got smashed by Chelsea, and in the first half and the second half was like two completely different teams. The first half was like an end of era Matt Beard team, and the second half was an Ollie Harder team. And then ever since then, we've been more consistent. And then this year, he's got his own players in. He's got players that suited his style, and he's probably changed the whole club. I mean, I think we're a lot more professional off the pitch as well. A guy that was getting a lot of stick from me, especially. I mean, we was calling him out, was a guy called Aidan Boxall. I didn't hear great things about, but he seems to have a relationship with Ollie, a really good one, and they work well together, and that's reflected on the players on the pitch, because they're working in a positive environment. And Paul Konchesky as well. I know Paul personally because I worked with him at a bit of Ricky when he was a player there, and Paul. I know Paul's a good coach, so he's great to have in and around the place, and he knows West Ham inside out. So we've got West Ham people. That's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. John, if you want to come in.
Yeah. I'm just curious. When the new manager came in, how long did it kind of take for maybe the players to settle into the new system, and even the fans to kind of get used to the new system? Obviously, if you've got a bit of a downer at the start, the only way could have been up potentially. But did it take a while for you guys to kind of start trusting the process, as the terminology is these days?
Well, if you watch the early shows in January on the Wee Girls and Claret and Blue that me and Ali Koki used to do, within 3 weeks, I really liked Ollie. I liked his system and everything. And Ali wasn't too sure because he didn't even have a big representation in the women's game. Remember we was after Ludlow, and it was announced at one point that she was going to be our manager, and then 2 weeks later we announced our manager, and it's a guy called Ollie Harder, and we literally I saw the tweet and text Ali, who's he? And yeah, for me it was within 3 weeks. You could tell he liked his team to work hard. One thing he did as well was he upped the training. I think he added a couple of evening sessions because he knew how unfit we were. So he's massive on fitness and character, and that's something that's ingrained in West Ham. So the fact that he knows himself what West Ham needs. He done an interview at the start. Actually, that's when people started believing. I think 3 weeks when he came in, West Ham released an interview with him. And he spoke so highly of the club, and he said, this is a team of working class people for working class fans. And it completely wowed everyone. And that is exactly when you knew he knows what the club's about, he knows what he wants, and he's going to get it. And he's done that, to be fair.
What he just says there, just to open up about you and Ali having like difference of opinions, that's very similar to me and maybe some of the co-hosts on here, maybe me and Natalie. I think that was a bit more than Natalie at the start. And I can see why, I was lucky in the sense of I didn't know much about Skinner at the start when he joined, but I could kind of see what he was trying to do, even though it wasn't working. What is it that you saw in Ollie that in the initial few weeks that kind of won you over at the start?
Just the intensity, the way we were playing. It wasn't even on the ball. It was the way we were just running and working hard. It was players that, you heard rumours didn't want to be at West Ham and was leaving in the summer, and all of a sudden they're running like running like a blue ass fly and trying really hard for us. So yeah, that's what gets for me personally as a West Ham fan. I mean, I'm only a young West Ham fan, I suppose, 19 years, but I've been brought up on managers of Sam Allardyce, Avram Grant. So you never respect results. As long as we work hard, we're happy. As long as our team's working hard and we're getting results, we're happy. And that's what Ollie's brought.
Yeah. Do you want to take that question there on screen, Reese, from Mansell?
Hadalgwa, yeah, she's a good player. She's actually one of my favourites, to be fair. She's came in and done really well. She's one of the players that has ingrained Ollie's system, and the reason why she was brought in, because she does get Ollie's system really well.
That again, I'm just thinking like comparisons. Players that are brought in, they're not brought in just because they're good players, but they're good players who suit the system, that suit the manager. And this will be really interesting. Being January, we can get on to transfers soon.
I think
who we want to come in
as well, John. What was massive for us was when we got rid of Martha Thomas to you guys, and I wasn't happy with that at all, because I loved Martha when she was at West Ham, and I think Ali was more reason to it. She was a bit shocked, but I think she expected her to go because of Ollie. And to be fair, he got that bang on, because now my opinion's changed. I think Claudia Walker for West Ham is a much better striker because she suits Ollie Harder's system.
Yeah, it's interesting, John, because I'm just thinking of sort of the squad and players that have come in. I think a big one for me was the signing of Lisa Evans.
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Things like that. And I think when we're talking about sort of players fitting a system, and obviously, John, you mentioned us with Skinner, it's almost as though, I'm not going to say it's a carbon copy, but it's similar, isn't it? Obviously, West Ham have had their new manager in since, the new year, last year, and we're sort of from summer. But I think, obviously, we spoke about and sort of compared last season then, but I want to sort of get your thoughts then, Reese, on the second half. So, obviously, we play each other Sunday, which we'll get onto. But what are your hopes then, obviously, for the rest of 2022 for sort of West Ham?
I'd like us to maybe get inside that top 5. I know that's ambitious, but I believe we can be there. I'd like a nice FA Cup run. To be under Matt, we had a cup run. I'm sure you guys remember it when we got to the final in our first WSL season, and that today still probably remains my favourite ever West Ham highlight that season. That cup run was unbelievable, and we're still in the Conti Cup. So if we can go maybe if we can beat Chelsea, hopefully in the Conti Cup, and then get to the final in the FA Cup, and maybe win one of them. So that's all we're missing now. We've been to cup finals. We've secured ourselves as a WSL club. Now we need a trophy. However, that is a big ask. But if Ollie does that, he really makes himself a West Ham legend.
I think the way Man City have been this season is really opened up, hasn't it? This 3rd, 4th, and 5th place spot. I still see Man City as like Man United's biggest threat to kind of break into that top 3. But you are right. I mean, Tottenham's there, and obviously, if you go on another good run at West Ham, we're all there and thereabouts, aren't we? And it is good that you have that kind of ambitions.
Well, our next 2 weeks are crucial, John. And if we can beat you and Tottenham in them next 2 weeks, then you're sort of saying we've got a real chance. And that's where the momentum builds. These 2 weeks are crucial for all of us.
Over to you, man.
Yeah, no, I'm I'm looking at this first here. James is asking, is Jack Sullivan still involved with West Ham? I think he left, didn't he?
Yeah, he left. He did. I think he hired Ollie with the help of Aidan Boxall, who's still there. And Aidan runs everything now. But Jack Sullivan's left. I think he's actually quite recently he's been put on the board on the men's team since we've been taken over by this Kroninsky guy.
Yeah. Do you think that then's maybe made it sort of better off the pitch? Because I mean, again, I can only sort of go off watching that documentary and sort of things that were brought up. But would you say, in your opinion, it's a lot more sort of smoother and everybody sort of knows the role and things of sort of in terms of the running of the club?
Yeah, I think Aidan's a lot more professional, and he took a massive bollocking, like I said at the start, from me and a couple of fans. We were calling him out on Twitter, but to be fair, he sort of proved me wrong over the summer. I'll admit that. He's more professional. He knows the women's game inside out, and he's got a relationship with Ollie. And I think that another main thing as well is not having that TV show. I think that's a big thing because not having the distraction of all them cameras around them and just getting on with the job. I actually don't think Ollie would have it, to be honest. He'd have to put up with it, but I don't think he'd work as well as he would in the environment he is now. Because I think that maybe was match downfall in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to move on then also in January to transfers. We can talk ins and outs and what you expect to happen and what you'd sort of like. But I think we'll start with what you'd like to see. Is there any specific positions you feel you need to strengthen? Do you think there'll be many coming in, or?
I don't think there'll be many. I think it's funny because I think what we need to improve on the most is not conceding late goals. I think teams have come back against us lately where we've dropped 2 points and Ollie hasn't been happy with that. But yeah, it's one of them. If Ollie wants to bring someone in, bring them in. But I'm not expecting massive changes. I'm quite happy where we are with our team. This year, another change is we've got more squad depth, and it seems we ain't getting injured as much. So yeah, I'm quite happy where we are. If you ask me what I want, it's 3 points against you guys and 3 points against Tottenham.
And Everton, the game after that. Make sure you beat them after your Chelsea one.
Yeah. Don't look too far ahead.
when we think about like transfer season, we always think about players coming in and we get excited about new faces. Is there anyone that you could potentially see leaving, whether it be on loan or permanently at all? Just to kind of maybe, you never know, they might move down to a championship club who will be interested with a couple of guests that we've got later on, or maybe moving out on loan, any youngsters or anyone.
You know what? Unless it's the youngsters that I'm not aware of, because as you know, John, I haven't really been to a lot of games this year, so I don't know if any youngsters have been on the bench. I've just been watching the live streams, but I think we'll keep it mostly the same. They seem like quite a tight knit group. Even the players on the bench get regular minutes now. I think that's one thing Ollie's improved. Everyone seems happy with the minutes they're getting. So yeah, I think it's just more of let's continue with what we're doing, and if Ollie wants to add anything, he'll add it. Another thing as well on the question what's Ollie improved is the goalkeeper, Mackenzie. He's got a tune out of Mackenzie Arnold, because last year, if you watch some of the shows, I was caning her week in, week out about not being good enough. And this year, she shut me up. She's been superb for us, made crucial saves. And the backup goalkeeper as well we brought in this year is very good.
think just looking at obviously transfers in your squad, and obviously you mentioned young players. I think what's good this year is there's a nice balance at West Ham. You've been able to bring in that quality, to sort of support what you have as well. And I think like we talked about before, to be sort of pretty much there and thereabouts point wise compared to last year, it shows the difference already. Like, if you'd have said last year or this year by the halfway stage, you're going to get your points pretty much there. Some may have said yes, some may have said no. But yeah, I think that's it's in West Ham's favour. That I want to move on to Sunday. Obviously, you talked about we've got a clash between the two teams. Where do you stand then from a West Ham perspective? Obviously, coming back after a break, what's it usually like for your team? So, if I speak on behalf of ours, it's usually shocking. January is our downfall.
Yeah, I think normally we do sort of all right in January, but it's normally all right in January and then a massive lull period after that. It's midway through the season. Under Matt, we was always like that. Do well, something would happen, and then bang, a downfall. Apart from the first season, but yeah, I think with Ollie it's a bit different. I think this is actually his first January where he's had the summer, and then he's coming into the second half of the season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Ollie improves that. The mentality is much better now, so yeah, I think it'll be more of the same. Continue, and get on with it. But I'm looking forward to the game on a Sunday for West Ham fans. Because I think Nat, people used to not really get on with Nat at West Ham until they're accustomed to I've always liked Nat. But yeah, there was a bit of rivalry at one stage between West Ham women fans and Man United, to be fair.
Yeah. Shahan's just put in the chat as well. Do you expect Lisa Evans to come in permanently at West Ham?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully she brings Miedema with her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Back on Sunday then, John, is there anything you want to add from a Man United point of view?
I think I feel a bit more confident about this after our last three games. We've scored 9, conceded 0, won 3 out of 3. A lot of talk from the Man United fan base and Skinner saying about momentum. Fans know that January is not good for us and that we've kind of lost that momentum now. But Skinner being Skinner always uses words. Well, I think he uses them well. Some people don't. But saying that it's all about how you use that momentum. So just because we haven't played any games, it doesn't mean that we've necessarily lost momentum. So I do feel a bit more confident going into this after what we've seen in the last 3 games. However, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy at all because this one does worry me. I think if we win this, much like yourself, Reece, if we win this one, we could go on that run now and put a few games together. And I think we've both in a similar situation there. I'm not going to necessarily give a score prediction, but I probably would say that we're favourites to win.
Yeah, I was about to say to you. Yeah, I think you're favourites to win, but that benefits us.
Yeah. So how do you think you might play this? So, me personally, I think we will be confident. I haven't really thought too much about the actual style of play. We're very possession based at the moment, so we try and keep the ball as much as we can. Not necessarily penetrate too much with that, but it's mainly centre midfield. We're quite narrow. How do you think maybe your midfield will kind of cope with that ball possession?
I think we're fine. We've done that against Man City. Our performance against Man City is what gives me confidence about this one. Even though I'd argue this year you're probably better than Man City. Probably upset some Man City fans.
We always upset them. That's normal.
But yeah, I think this will be a tougher test because Man City haven't been great this season. You are a bit like us when you're in a process with Mark Skinner, and you just it's more. For you guys, I feel like it's more of a let's see what Mark Skinner can do season than expecting anything because, Casey is a massive person to replace me. He has seemed to be shaky start, but he seems to be doing quite well now. That's my understanding of Man United this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at what we've got to do, and if your players haven't got any character, which I don't know because I haven't watched a lot of Man United this season, you will lose. It's as simple as that because we will make it hard for you. We will fight for everything. And your defenders are going to have to be really alert because we counter really quickly. And if you're not fast onto our counter-attacks, we will go through you.
Okay.
Makes it interesting because thinking about that and hearing that, obviously something that we've sort of noticed in recent weeks, John, has been the change in sort of midfield, hasn't it, to a 5. So thinking about sort of counter attacks, whether he sticks with that 5 for me would be interesting, because that to me would be the way about it, is that, you know, keep your midfield 5. You've got obviously your 4 at the back as well. To me, that's a sort of solid base to build on. Obviously, you mentioned, you know, the Man City, and obviously you beat them comfortably and kept a clean sheet, just to rub it in a little bit more to their fans. But yeah, I think Sunday, this sort of reminds me of the Brighton game, and a lot of United fans were saying, you know, we're going to go to Brighton and struggle, and we'd struggled in the league year after year against Brighton, and then got a 2-0 win and a clean sheet. So this for me, again, it's another potential, just because of how well, like we've talked about, how well you've sort of adapted and gone through that process since getting Ollie in. Stu here says, hearing Reece admit he's been proved wrong in a few counts this season. Understandable as a fan, will this make you more patient in the future?
With Ollie, yes. It's actually funny because Ollie Harder and David Moyes have made me a lot more patient as a football fan. I've got a lot of trust in them two guys, so they better not let me down anytime soon. But yeah, with Ollie, I'll be more patient. But when the next manager comes in, he'll have to prove me right again, or she'll have to prove me right for me to have trust in him.
Matt, yeah. I know that you're going to be doing like a proper preview show with Benny on Saturday regarding this West Ham game. But for me, if I can just quickly add something, I think for me the key will be how disciplined both teams are, and I think that's the first time I've ever said that on the show. But I think United will try and force the West Ham defence kind of out of position. So I think if the West Ham defence set up and they know what their game plan is and they stick to that game plan, and they know exactly who they're marking, they know if one of our strikers goes wondering about, like in that false 9 kind of position or whatever, who's going to be picking that player up. I think if they stay disciplined like that, that'll be very hard for us. And I think we need to stay disciplined because I think we need to be patient. I don't think it's going to be easy at all. I think we're going to have a lot of possession. I think the fans are probably going to our fans are going to get on the players' backs a little bit, because I think we're going to be patient, not slow, but patient. I don't think we're going to push anything.
That's not there Sunday, so it might be a bit more relaxed with that.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, she's got a lovely life celebrating a birthday. I think it'll take her 2 weeks to celebrate that birthday. But it's true. I think patience is the key for United, and if West Ham stay disciplined at the back, then let's see what West Ham can kind of do is when they counter attack or when they do have opportunities to go forward. Let's see how they do with that.
I think first goal's crucial, because I think if you get the first goal, we'll be a bit more expansive in our play, and we'll have to go for it. And then you may get a counter-attacking situation where you can get a second and shut shop yourself. But I think if we get the first goal, it's going to become a real difficult game. I actually think it may be first goal wins, to be honest. Yeah,
I think it'll be a closer affair. I don't know if you want to give a score prediction, Reece, but I think maybe one goal might be in it. I think in 2, I'm gonna have to go Man United, so I'm gonna go 2-1 with a sort of a 1 goal difference in it. But I don't know if you've got any score predictions or goal scorers you want to give us.
I'll go 1-0 West Ham, Claudia Walker goal.
John, are you brave enough to give us a prediction?
Always brave.
Go on then.
I don't see many goals. I think it's either going to be 1-0 or 2-1. To United. I've got to say United. I'm not Anthony. If ever you've seen Anthony Reece on this show, he's a Man United fan and he always goes against United. No, I'm going to say... I
can never do that. I'll never go against my team. Even if we're playing like... when we was... I think we played you and I was talking to Nat on a show, and we were on. I thought in my head, this is going to be like 3-0 Man United. I still said 1-0 West Ham.
I'll sometimes say a draw. So when we're against like Chelsea and Arsenal, I'll say, 1-1 draw. But I never say that we'll lose. I'll go for 2. I'll go for 2-1.
The draw prediction is when a football fan's nervous about the upcoming game.
We'll take this one. Do you think the women will start to play in the main stadiums in the future?
Yeah, we done it once against Tottenham a couple of years ago, and it was a good atmosphere. But I think we're more of an opinion of we want to sell out Dagenham and Redbridge regularly before we start to do that, and I think that's the way to go. Casey said that actually when she was at Manchester United. That let's not worry about Old Trafford. Let's worry about filling up Lee Sports Village, and I think that's the right way to go about it. Because if let's be honest, as great as the occasion is, if you're not going to fill out Dagenham and Redbridge, you're not going to fill out the London Stadium. And, you need to start doing that just to keep the club sustainable before you open the doors of the London Stadium. But I hope so. I mean, we played Tottenham at home this season, so I don't think it'll be, it won't be that. So I don't know if it'll be this season, to be honest.
Just out of curiosity, just before we move on there, Matt, Reece, do you know how far the stadiums are apart, the men's and the women's stadium, roughly?
Half hour. The reason I know that is because on Sunday, I've got a hectic day. I'm going to the West Ham Leeds game at the London Stadium.
Okay.
Train straight down to Dagenham East and off to the West Ham Women v Man United game. So it's about half hour.
I just wondered because obviously ours is half an hour, but like the transport isn't great. And I said this for a reason. I know Stu was in the comments. And
right
it's not a conversation that we need to start now, but I guess if the stadiums were close together, then you might get a few more fans going to the men's stadium. However, in our case, obviously, there's the stadium so far away. It's just so awkward to get to, isn't it, from Manchester to Leeds?
I think on this debate, I'll give my view. And it's one that actually my brother goes to a lot of the women's games. And we were speaking about this, the Tottenham game. I think if you're going to have the women's team at the stadium and you want a really good attendance, put maybe the men on say West Ham men are playing. So on the Saturday the 18th, we had West Ham v Norwich. And that's a 3 o'clock kickoff. Put the women on at 6 o'clock at the stadium after the men's game. And I'm sure people will stay for the game. But if you're going to do it as an individual game, right now, the way the women's game's growing, it's growing at a rapid rate, but we're not there yet, unless it's England. England women's team are the only women's team, for me, that will sell out them sort of stadiums. And, on top of that, you've got a pandemic, which is putting a lot of people off going to games as it is. So right now, I think let's concentrate on filling out Dagenham and Redbridge before we worry about the London Stadium.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm sort of similar view. Like we've always said, John, or quite a few of us have. Let's get our own stadium sold before, going. I mean, we're still going to Old Trafford in March, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm disappointed. But I just think, as a one-off, it's fine, but you don't want to see it happening a lot. But like you said, in terms of West Ham, I think you 2 o'clock on Sunday, aren't you, the men's team?
Yeah, 2 o'clock.
So another option if you wanted to, or they were keen on getting fans across, would be something like transport across.
Yeah,
from the men's stadium to the women's. Obviously, it's 6:45. Your men's team will be done just after 4 o'clock. Obviously allows for traffic, plenty of time in terms of sort of growth, and then you've got your options there for bringing in new fans, or like Stu said, double header there. Again, like sort of mentioned, really in the main stadium. And then sort of fans that have never been get sort of an insight into women's side, and obviously they get to see that they're doing miles better obviously this year. Just before we finish on sort of West Ham then, Reece, do you want to pick a favourite game and a favourite goal of 2021? Can either be a result or a game you've attended.
From the same game, I watched it on the live stream. I didn't attend. I literally shot home from work and watched it on the I think it was on FA Player or Sky. Was the 1-0 win against Tottenham. Any result against Tottenham, favourite one, and a goal will go with it. It's my favourite goal. That was actually quite big for us because that was the first time we beat Tottenham in the WSL.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I was half thinking then you were going to say Man City, but fair enough. I suppose Tottenham's local-ish, isn't it? Or localer than Man City. So.
To be fair, Tottenham because of what it is, but if we put that Man City performance against Tottenham, then that is probably the best performance. Yeah,
absolutely. John, is there any final thoughts from you before we swap?
I want to give my answer from a Man United point of view. So I'm terrible at remembering goals, results, all this kind of stuff. But so if it sticks in my head, then it sticks in my head. So for me, I'm thinking Tobin Heath against Man City. Just scored a couple of belters in that game. And also 2-0 against Arsenal, where I don't even know if that was 2021. I wanted to start with that.
It was last. No, it wasn't.
Season.
It was it was. It was November.
You
can't have that, Jim.
Tobin it is then. Tobin it is. Yeah.
Tobin it is. Fair enough. Right. Well, thank you very much, Reece, for joining us. We're going to now sort of talk from a Bristol and Crystal Palace point of view. So yeah, like I say, thanks for joining us, and hopefully Sunday, John, I think you're down, aren't you? Might catch up if you're down there as well.
Yeah, I'll see you Sunday, guys. I would wish you good luck, but I can't on Sunday, unfortunately.
Fair enough. Cheers, Reece. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, and part 2 of the show then, we've got Mike from Eagle Eye View. Good evening, Mike. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. And obviously, Shahan, you're back as well. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Matt. Yourself and John?
Yep, all good from our side. Right then, we'll start, I think, with yourself, Mike, with Crystal Palace. Sat obviously in 4th at the minute, just above Bristol. You're on 18 points. Last season, finished in 7th. What are your thoughts then on this season so far, if we're sort of comparing to last season?
This season so far has been probably the best that I've experienced. I think probably that most of us have experienced. I mean, last season, or the start of 2021, we were poor, to be honest with you. I think we won 2 games. Well, I know we won 2 games in the second half of the season. We had to wait for our first win in February, and then the last one came on the last day. So while we finished in 7th, which was our highest ever finish, on 20 points, which is our highest points total, if we hadn't have beaten Lewis in the literally the last minute of the last game, we'd have finished about 10th. So it kind of shows how the small margins of last season, if that makes any sense. Whereas this year we're absolutely flying. 5 wins, 3 draws, just 2 losses, and we've carried a whole load of hoodoos, as I call them, teams that we've just not only not beaten, but never scored against, not taken points against, and we've put a lot of those to rest so far in the season gone. And as you say, 4th. I mean, it was 3rd going into the Lewis game, and obviously the Lewis game got postponed because of COVID. So we were actually sitting 3rd in the table, 1 point off a 2nd. So for us, we've been part-time still. It's been an absolutely fantastic to watch.
Yeah, and obviously similar to the story we were saying with West Ham and Reece. Obviously last year, again, you finished, like I said before, 7th with 20 points. You got 18 sort of this year again. Close to overtaking that. What would you put it down to then? Would you say it's signings, or has something sort of changed from a Crystal Palace point of view then? Or
I think that there's a couple of elements really, because for the last couple of seasons we've managed to keep the core of the team. Because our first season up, we didn't know we were in the Championship until 3 weeks before the season started. So we were on the back foot, and we kind of spent that first 2 seasons like that, to be honest. But then we've kept the core of who was working for us last season. And then this year, what we've done is we signed experienced Championship players, because we managed to get in previous seasons, Coral Haynes from Spurs, Chloe Morgan came in from Spurs. We got some of the players who had just gone up to the WSL, but we needed that extra experience around what we already had, and that's what we've done this summer. Is we've gone out and signed players who have got, 250 appearances for Charlton with Leanne under their belt at this level. Millie Farrow was in the Leicester team last season that went up. It's people that know know this league. And on top of that, we've gone to training 4 nights a week for the first time, and it's at the brand new academy. So I think you take that as well, because we were very much a 2 halves team last year, where first half we'd go all out, leave it all on the pitch, and you might go in at half time winning 1-0 or close in the game. And the second half, you could see we would run out of steam quite quickly, because our players are getting 2 nights training a week, working their full-time jobs. Whereas this season, the 4 nights, the more time that they're getting to spend together, working hard on the tactics that Dean has implemented this season, they're just getting more time to practice it, because it does show you when you play a full-time team in our league, and they've got all week to work on the tactics and the drills and how they want to play and what they want to do. And our players, bless them, they were coming in, they've had 2 nights after a busy day. Must be very hard to kind of put in the organisation and drill it how you want it to be. And I think now we're able to do that more. Fitness levels are up higher. And I think you couple that with, as I say, keeping the core of what has been the positive last season, because last season we broke a quite a few new firsts for us. But then adding in the experience at this level to it, I think, it's really helped Dean be able to mould what he wants for his vision. And we're seeing that now with the performances on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Massive. Yeah, I'm just, well, first of all, Mike, welcome to the show. I know that we've been chatting privately on Twitter, and I think what you're doing for Crystal Palace and the growth of women's football and highlights the championship teams is great. So just keep doing what you're doing. And that's one of the reasons why you're on the show. All the people who come on the show really care about women's football. I know Shahan's the same, and we always try and promote your podcast, Shahan, as well, because it's great to see. So thank you for making your debut on the channel, Mike. I want to just bring Shahan in a little bit. At the start of the season, I don't know if you considered yourself favourites to kind of come back up into the league. I think there's probably other clubs out there who may have considered themselves more of favourites to get promoted. Bristol went through kind of a massive rebuild over the summer. Just kind of your thoughts, Shahan, on how the season's kind of unfolding now that we're halfway through.
Yeah, good question, John. Yeah, we're halfway through the season. Obviously, there's one league game. Well, there's one team we haven't played yet, which is London City Lionesses, which was the last game of 2021 that got postponed due to COVID. And I gotta say, compared to being in the WSL last season and the seasons before that, yeah, it's been a wonderful breeze in the championship. I was worried like the team would have had like more confidence issues or like more bad performances, but yeah, as you said, John, it's been a complete rebuild, brand new head coach, new assistant head coach. A lot of new players have come in to replace those that have left, and the teams seem to have been gelling very well. I think we've only lost one game at home this season against Durham, and every other game at home has either been we've pretty much been undefeated, apart from I think that was one draw against Lewis in pre-season. But yeah, it feels weird, like we're constantly winning games, which is something as Bristol City fans we're not quite used to, especially at home, because I know this time last year, our first home win was in 2021 at the end of January against Brighton, and at that point that was like our first home win in the league in almost 2 years.
It is. It's interesting because I've been fortunate enough to go to Bristol and see Palace as well this season, and I was really impressed with both games. I was really impressed with when Bristol won Sheffield United. That was a massive game. We was there. I met you for the first time, Shahan, and Mike. I went to the Crystal Palace Coventry game where Palace done really well there and got the win. Just sticking with yourself, Shahan, just what were your thoughts on that Sheffield United game? I mean, were you expected to win? Because I wasn't expected to see a scoreline that emphatic.
No, of course not, John. And of course, to the listeners who don't know the result of that game was a 5-1 win to Bristol City. I know Sheffield United were like top or within the top of the table at the start of the season, and then I think that, or am I thinking of Sunderland? Sorry, it's the Van White Stripes that are confusing me. But yeah, I was not expecting a performance like that to be so dominant against a really strong, and to be really strong against a side like Sheffield United. And of course, the game, it was on Halloween as well, and I was dressed up, which I think I don't think I told you guys I was going to do that, so that was a bit of a surprise for everyone, especially to my friends who didn't know I was going to dress up either. But yeah, I think the only other biggest performance we've had since then was beating Lewis 5-0 in the FA Cup back in December. But that was our fourth time playing them in 2021 because we already played them in the league and in the Conti Cup and in the preseason friendly. But that Lewis game was the only game where we managed to keep a clean sheet. I mean, obviously I know. Well, I don't really know everyone from Sheffield United. I mean, I know Rich Daverty on Twitter, and of course he's been on the show a few times. So hello, Rich, if you're watching. I'm looking forward to the return fixture against Sheffield United in Chester, but I think it's on the day where I wouldn't be able to make because it clashes with something else.
Yeah, Mike, there's lots of comments, from people watching about your young players. Just want to talk to me a little bit about those and sort of what they've brought to Crystal Palace this year.
Yeah, it's just the passion, I think, and the vibrancy. I mean, one of those that really stands out, if you look in goal, is Emily Orman, who we've got in the loan from Chelsea in the summer. and 19 years of age, come in championship level, and she's been a revelation. Played the last night. She didn't start the Bristol City game because Chloe had been our first choice keeper all last season. But she's come in after that, Emily, and she's been fantastic. And again, I think it's just we've got that blend this season where we've got the experienced heads, but you need that kind of. And ironically, it's happening in the men's team as well, where we're starting to get that build, and I think you get that hunger and that passion. And I know, like with Millie, I remember at the start of the season when we announced we'd signed Millie Farrow from Leicester, I contacted the Leicester supporters group for a bit of information about her, because at our level it's so hard to find information on players. And one of the things they said was that there's a good player there, but she just wasn't given the opportunities last season because of Leicester's form. And I think you can see now with how she plays for us, it took a little bit to get a couple of games to get settled in, making the adaptation from being full-time back to being at a part-time club. But you can see how she plays now, and that passion and that drive with, not only the youthfulness. I think if you're old enough to play, you're good enough to play, you're old enough to play, the old cliche. But I think we've benefited from her passion of not being able to show what she can do last season. And now we're starting to get the benefit of that. And I think you can see it with the players, then the connection with the fans, and we've especially the last couple of home games with against Charlton and Durham, and everyone's on the same page, and we're all feeding off of each other. And I think it's just a massive positive for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of like you say, I think it's maybe, I don't know if maybe a point to prove is the right word in terms of Millie Farrow, but like you say, it only benefits Palace because she's somebody that's been there and done it in the WSL. Obviously at Reading and Bristol as well. So, like you say, to get that caliber of player in there, and obviously another one as well, Amy Everett, obviously ex-Leicester as well, another player that's, young player as well, again, has come in. And from what I hear, and I'm hoping you'll be able to sort of tell me more, Mike, but she's done pretty well for you as well.
Yep. Yes. No. She has. There's been, as I say, been quite a few standouts. How we rotate the team around positional wise, and it's kind of been in previous seasons. We've had one or two players who have shone above. Like you look at last season with Bianca Baptiste. First half of the season, she was on fire. You had like her, Coral, were the kind of standout players, and this season it's more. All of them, I say all of them, but it's very much more of a team effort. So when I discussed it on one of my conversations the other day on Twitter Spaces, and we were trying to talk about our standout player of the first half of the season, and it's impossible to narrow it down beyond about 6 or 7 players, because just everyone is delivering every week in what they're being asked to do, which for us is refreshing because like I feel Shahan's paid with the home defeats. They said for nearly 2 years. We didn't win at home for nearly 2 years. So all of a sudden now we're watching these performances, and we're outplaying teams in different ways. And so at times it's not specifically one player that makes any sense that stands out. You come off the terrace and you're talking about, well, what about such and such? What about Amy? What about Millie? What about Shiv? What about Bianca? Everyone seems to keep putting in all the time. So it's hard to kind of narrow it down to just one person and their specific performances. But as I say, Amy, she's come in and she's slotted right into the team, and everyone's just pulling in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the difference as well. Obviously, like, we're sort of comparing last year to this year. And like you said, obviously this year, with it being so hard to pick individuals, I think that in itself, from, looking at it from the outside, just shows that you can see the improvements there. And obviously you talked about upping training, the facilities as well. I've only seen videos of obviously the training ground, but again, that looks, fantastic. And in terms of obviously a women's side, when sort of facilities can get criticised, it's good to see that, Palace are giving it a real good go, which seems to be, like I say, this year, proving better sort of on the pitch. And like you say, in terms of results as well, it's looking really good. I want to sort of move back to Bristol, Shahan, and bring you in. Obviously, 2021, if we look at it as a whole, it's obviously split. And last year, you were in the WSL. But I want to sort of get your thoughts then, because like I say, obviously, we last had you on just before that game when John and everybody went down. You hammered Sheffield, and like I said to you, sort of off camera before the show, I think it was 6 wins in all competitions, 1 draw, no losses. Hammered Lewis in the FA Cup, and you qualified for the Conti Cup. Looking at it, sort of like I say, comparing start of this season to the end of last, what would you say has been maybe the biggest thing for Bristol then? Has it sort of maybe been not necessarily starting again because there's a lot of players there, but maybe just rebuilding and finding confidence? Or do you think there's maybe something else looking at obviously last year to this?
Yeah, you mentioned about the Conti Cup. Of course, like one positive thing about last year, which I think a lot of some fans may forget, is despite our poor performance in the WSL or the results in the WSL, we somehow managed to qualify for the final of the Conti Cup. So I think our first game of 2021, we actually beat Aston Villa in the quarter-final. And then, of course, went on to beat Leicester in the semi-final and then get hammered by Chelsea in the final. But, yeah, I think to answer back to your main question, Matt, I think as well as, like, the new coach and, like, the new players setting in, I think one thing fans like me can look at is just, like, the re-emergence of existing players or them finding their form, such as Abby Harrison. So she's been in the club now for like a few seasons now. I know in the 2019 to 20 season, she suffered an ACL injury and missed what would be the second half of the season, but of course it got curtailed early because of COVID. And then she returned in the 2020 to 21 season, but of course didn't really play as many games or usually came on as a sub for when Ebony Salmon came off, and there was the rare, and those two didn't really play with each other that much. I think that one best example is when Abby Harrison provided an assist to Salmon for that winning goal against Reading and Ashton Gay in March last year, which I was lucky enough to attend with a media pass as part of the Vixen cast, and I have shared a comment in the YouTube channel for the listeners and watchers tonight if they want to follow and subscribe. But yeah, Abby Harrison, now that Ebony Salmon has left the club to go to recently live in America, whatever confidence she had or whether like what messages she said to herself or given by the coaching staff, like she really found her form. It was her chance to regain like the form she had when she was a Hibernian in Celtic, and just started scoring goals for fun and did so well that she ended up getting called as a replacement for actually I think it was for Martha Thomas, I believe, or someone else in the Scotland national team, and then went on to score an equaliser against Ukraine at Hampden Park. And it's not just the reliance on one main goal scorer. I mean, Harrison gets all the goals, but we've even seen this year Amy Palmer score goals, which she didn't do last season, or when I think she was a Bristol City before she joined Man United, and other players that we've also signed. We've also helped with scoring. Melissa Johnson, Simon Jamat, and even Chloe O'Ball, formerly known as Chloe O'Connor, who stepped up from the Welsh league system to the Championship. And I've got to say, with us being in the Championship this season, I think the amount of new players that we've attracted, or the talent, the levels that we've attracted, I am not sure if we would get as many of those players if we win the WSL, or still in the WSL.
I think it's great to have two fans on who are kind of like in a very similar position in the league, and I just kind of want to get both your thoughts on this one. I'll start with yourself, Shahan, and then Mike just come straight in afterwards. We talk about the competitiveness of the league, and it looked for a long time that it was going to be almost like a 2-horse race between like Liverpool and Durham. Do you guys think that there's a good chance that there's a chance that you'll compete at the by the end of the season, that you could be there or thereabouts competing with the top 3 teams at the moment? And also, just what are your thoughts on only one team getting promotion and not maybe something slightly different?
Should I go first or should Mike go first?
Yeah, you go first, and Mike just jump in afterwards.
Sure thing. Okay, thanks, Sean. So again, when the season first started, I realistically did not expect us to push for promotion. I would have expected a team like Liverpool, after their disappointment last season, and also with Matt Beard coming in, a manager who of course we know pretty well when he came in the second half of last season. But yeah, I think again with our home form and win after win after win, we're slowly climbing up the table, and it's so weird in the Championship how literally one game or one result can flip the table on its head back and forth. Like you can have teams go up and down. So I really do think I see ourselves, pushing, for the top spot. It's a shame that there only is one promotion spot in the championship now, because I know when Bristol were in what was then WSL2 a few years ago, we finished second, but beneath the oval. But back then there were 2 promotion spots available at the time. I'm hoping there's something, if the league's going to expand, both the WSL and the Championship, whether they're both going to have, 2 relegation or 2 promotion spots respectively, and if the team's going to get the number of teams participating will be bigger. But yes, I really hope City Bristol will push all the way this season. I don't think we're going to get promoted this season. I think this season was more of a rebuild, and we're just going to keep the good form, and then assuming we can keep a lot of our great players and also get some new signings either this window or over the summer. Next season, if we're not get promoted this season, we'll push for promotion then.
Yeah, Mike, do you just want to come in on that?
Yeah, for us, I mean, I'd love to say we'd get promoted, but I think I'd probably get carted off by people in white coats. Going into this season, our aim is always to try and improve on last season. We've done it ever since we got promoted. So obviously coming to this season, we wanted to beat 20 points, get higher than 7th if we could. So to be 3rd and then 4th at Christmas was beyond anything that we anticipated really as fans. I'd love for it to continue. I think if we could finish, if we finish top 4, it'd be amazing for us this season. The problem is every year, as you said, it's won by the team that's either full-time or all but. Because obviously United destroyed it when they got in it. It was the most ridiculous season. Villa, I don't think they were full-time, but I think they might have been close to it when they went up. Leicester last season, full-time. And now this season top is Liverpool, full-time. It's the same every year. So for us, we've now 4 full-time teams in it this season. To be where we are is fantastic. And I think if we could continue that on, I'd love to be involved in it. Even if, if we come towards the end of the season, we're still battling out, we could get 3rd or something like that, would be phenomenal for us. I do think it needs to be more go up. I think the leagues need to expand. I don't think you can. Well, we've only just got up to 12 teams. We've had an odd number for the previous 3 seasons, which is frustrating because one team has to sit out every week, and B, I think doesn't really look very professional when you're trying to sell the women's game to outsiders who've already got kind of terrible mindsets. I think when you see an odd number of teams, it doesn't help, and the players need more games because like now it's hard to say. We've got Sunderland up next, and you just don't know what we're going to do because we haven't played for 3 or 4 weeks now. So we need more games, and I do think you need more to play for because at the moment in the Championship it's very, very competitive. But realistically, for most of the season, you're kind of competing to who is the best of the rest, if that makes any sense, because it's normally so dominant with one team. So I do think it definitely needs reviewing. I think the WSL could be bigger. The Championship, we all keep saying 16 teams in the Championship. So yeah, but as I say, I would if we could get top 4, would be an absolutely phenomenal season. And poor old Dean, what he'd have to do to top that next season, I don't know. But yeah, if we could finish top 4, would be fantastic.
Yeah, just sort of whizzing through these comments, again, Jonathan talks about 2 up, 2 down, which, I think most fans that I've ever spoke to would agree, whether on here or on Twitter. James mentions 16 teams. He's even thrown in something there about promoted directly and then a playoff again, just spices it up. I want to stick with you though, Mike, because you talked about obviously Palace trying to compete with full-time teams. And again, something sort of Jonathan mentions with Liverpool. Do you think that this new Barclays deal next year is going to help the likes of Palace and other teams that maybe aren't full-time, just in terms of maybe competing or even recruitment?
Hopefully, but I suppose it's hard because most people are going to pick full-time over part-time, even though we're now up to the 4 training sessions. So I think we're still going to be behind, and you've got the big brand names of a team like Liverpool, for example. And so hopefully we'll bring a bit of balancing, but it's until you get every team's full time in the league on the same kind of playing field, I think it will be quite difficult. And the thing is, well, what a lot of people probably don't realise with the Championship is with the type of players who are available for it, their circumstances are very different. So, like we lost Sherelle Cassell in the summer, who is a great player and is tearing it up for Portsmouth because she couldn't go to 4 training sessions a week with what she's got, with her life that's going on. And when we had Ashley Hinks with us, who's now at AFC Wimbledon, I remember when she joined us, if we'd have gone up to the WSL, she'd have to leave because she couldn't leave her full-time job to do this. So it's quite it's not very straightforward in the championship level. It's a bit of a minefield with what different players can do, what's available. So hopefully it will bring some form of balance. But as we all know with football, it's where all that money goes to. Because if you look at a lot of people this season, a lot of the promotional stuff done by the league and stuff, Liverpool are the selling point, if you know what I mean. So the rest of us are we're all there competing, but it's Liverpool are kind of like the Golden Girls, as it were. As you see in the men's games as well, don't you, with the teams that always get picked for the TV and stuff. But as I say, hope it'd be nice. The extra money is very much welcome, and hopefully it'll bring with it a bit more of us getting out there, get the exposure for the players who thoroughly deserve so much more recognition than they get. But yeah, I mean, only time will tell. The skeptic in me says, I'll wait to see what happens. But yeah, only time will tell.
Just very quickly, Mike, before I let John move on. Question here: do finances depend on the men's team being on the Premier League? I mean, from a Palace point of view, I'm assuming they're not funded by the men with being part-time, or do the men have some sort of input?
No, we're not. I think in our previous seasons we have Steve Parish has put a little bit in, but it's not funded by the men. It should be. We all very much believe, and I've been in contact with John Texter, who bought into Palace this season, about the men in our opinion, the men's club needs to do more because we advertise this one club policy and don't really fulfil it. I do think, from a distant view, I think in a championship at the moment, without that extra backing, constant backing, it is very hard, as you've seen with what's happened at Coventry, and thankfully today, touch wood, it sounds like Coventry are going to be saved. But even as a full-time club, there's not much money to be made in the championship. So when you're then paying higher wages, more staff, etc., I'd imagine it must be a nightmare to kind of keep on a financial footing without having that backing. Because even in the men's game, at the high level, it's normally the owners are chucking in more and more money. And in the championship, I think if we want to kick on to that next level, then we do need that extra bit of money, the more for the players. And unfortunately, I do think finances will end up being key.
It's January, it's transfer window. Shahan, what are your thoughts? Do you think you need to strengthen? Where will you strengthen? Have you heard any rumours? What would you like to see happen, mate?
Well, for me personally, I'm not sure where else we can make additions to our squad. I mean, because we've got a really full squad as it is already, and we've also started to bring in like a lot of academy players into like the first team, such as Brooke Aspen, Liam Laser, who was playing with us last season as well as like Jasmine Ball and Izzy Cook making strides this season. I think for one thing for me personally, I'd like to see is, I know a few of the WSL clubs have already done this season, but to offer some of our existing players, like who might be out of contract this summer, like new contracts, just to have them commit to the club for another 18 months or whatever. Because I'm pretty sure there's gonna be a few clubs who will probably be after someone like Abby Harrison or even Brooke Aspen, who I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I mean, if we do bring in someone, I don't think we're going to need any new goalkeepers because we've already got Fran Penny still with us, and of course Sophie Whitehouse and Erin Foley, the academy product, who made her debut in the Connie Cup game against Crystal Palace, as Mike would know. Yeah, that's it really. Before you go to Mike, actually, there's a question I actually do want to ask Mike, if that's okay with you guys, man.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Mike, I know you've been on the Vixen cast before. you were on our last episode, but there's one thing I've never actually asked you before. Was from your experience as a Palace fan, what was Fionn Morgan like? Because of course she's joined us over the summer, and she's become a real fan favourite. Scored her first goal for Bristol City in the game against Lewis in the FA Cup, and of course still makes appearances for the Welsh national team. So, Mike, from your experience as a Palace fan, what was Fionn Morgan like?
I'd love to be able to give you a detailed answer. The problem is her season with us was the COVID season. So none of us could get to any games, and obviously there's very little coverage of it. But she was very much in and out the squad. Obviously she's Welsh international, isn't she? But she wasn't a regular for us. But I do believe, I think one of the reasons why I might be wrong here, but from what I've heard, one of the reasons why she left in the summer is because of the travel, which is why it makes sense that she, with Bristol being a lot closer to, I believe she lives in Wales. Or over that way. But yeah, so for us, it's hard to say because we just didn't get to see any games last season, did we? But she was very much in and out the squad. She wasn't a first choice all the time.
I see. Okay, well, thanks for clarifying.
Do you know what? From what I've seen, though, Shahan, she has looked pretty solid. I will admit, I've seen her a couple of times for Wales, and she's looked the part. So when I saw that transfer, I was like, ooh, not a bad signing that for Bristol. John, sorry, I've just jumped in there. My thoughts.
Oh, that's fine. I wanted to hear Mike's thoughts on potential transfers, ins and outs for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be much activity. I don't see anyone leaving. Our squad, it wasn't the biggest in the first place. So I don't see anyone. And with the position we're in and everything, I think previously when we've lost someone, it's normally been there's been some issue with the club or whatever, and they've parted ways. But I don't see anyone going out. If anyone comes in, I've heard maybe one might be coming in, but it's always very down at this level. It's very open as to nothing's confirmed, nothing's done till it's done, because obviously if WSL comes in, we've got no chance. But I'd love us to get a commanding centre back. Is what we really need. I think the previous seasons, shipping goals has been one of our struggles, especially in the air. The amount of goals we concede from corners, set pieces, the last couple of seasons has been ridiculous. And even this season's the first time we've had a positive goal difference of +2 currently. Normally by now we're about like -7 or something, -10, something silly. But I just think if we had that commanding centre back, because AJ, who first season with us was player of the season at right back, she's captain and she's been playing at centre back for the last 2 seasons now, and it kind of rotates with her. We don't necessarily have a solid pairing, or sometimes we just have the 3 at the back. And I just think if we get that solid kind of commanding centre back who could just take control in the games, the warrior type, who's the old blood and guts at the corners and all that kind of thing. I think we've got going forward, we're looking great. I think if we could just start getting a couple of clean sheets, we've only got 1 this season. We had 2, I think, last season. We don't really do clean sheets, so I think if we could get a commanding centre back in that could help do that, that would be perfect for me.
Yeah, and just before we finish, then I'll stick with you, Mike, and then Shahan, you can jump in. Have you got a favourite game or goal from 2021?
Yeah, favourite game is our 3-1 win over Durham. Up until then, every time we played them, it was like a guaranteed defeat. I don't think we'd even score. And they came down to Hayes Lane. They were top. And within about 10 minutes, we were 2-0 up. And it was one of those games where it was, we were under the cosh at times, but we controlled it so well. And they were, oh man, so frustrated. They shouted everything was a penalty. Every time the ball went in the box, they shouted penalty. And it's so loud. The staff, the players, everybody was shouting penalties. They demanded free kicks. I mean, the referee gave him a free kick for falling over the ball in the end. I think she got hounded so much. So it was one of those. It was very smug to beat them finally on our own ground. And let's say the way that they were acting during it was made it a bit more sweet. And goal-wise, I would say Millie Farrow's second against Charlton. There's a photo of it. It happened down. We all stand on the terrace at the Palace Loyal. And it happened around in front of us. She got an end of a mistake in the box, went round the keeper, and there's 3 players in the line. She beat them all, put it in the back of the net, and ran over to us in the corner. and everyone went absolutely ballistic. And there's this photo of it, and there's like Phil, he's running down the terrace. I look like I'm firing some pneumatic drill in the ground. We're all just going absolutely crazy, and it was just one of those perfect moments between the players and the fans. I think it'd been built up for a long, long time. So that'd be my favourite goal.
Yeah, do you know what? This is why we love hearing Durham get beat, John, because of things like that. Where do you know what I mean? I just think, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, it's only a Man United thing hating Durham." Like, it's definitely not. Everybody hates Durham. So hearing stuff like that, where they just moan, and reminds me of season 1 when they were moaning at us for turning up.
They're very arrogant. I found very, very arrogant.
Yeah, sort of sense of entitlement. Which we had a little bit of a run in with staff up there at their place in season 1, and they. Yeah, very, very odd team. Anyway, over to you, Shahan, then. Favourite game and goal 2021?
Well, the favourite game, I pretty much covered already, is the 5-1 win against Sheffield United. I think the other detail I'll add was that weekend, the day before, Bristol City men beat Barnsley at Ashingate, and that was the men's team first win at home since like January or something, or in a real long time, and of course, when I don't know about you guys, but like for me, like if the men's team win, then and the women's team win as well, then it's a perfect weekend. And and I was feeling with optimism, and then going into Sunday, obviously meeting some of you guys in person for the first time, and of course me and now as well. And it was just we just walked all over Sheffield United. As for my favourite goal, it'll be the away game at Watford, where we won 3-0, and it was Chloe Ball's goal. I think it got shared by it was selected. It was up for goal of like the week or something, or goal of the month. But it's where the Watford goalkeeper literally cleared the ball. It was like a clearance, but just landed it right in front of Chloe Ball. Just tapped her, and she just volleyed it with her right foot, and it just went back in the corner over there. And it was right in front of myself and DM, and now the other Vixen Cast co-hosts and like the other Bristol City fans had travelled up with us, and watch a superb goal. I don't think Chloe Ball is going to get a better goal than that this season. I mean, I hope she does, but if she doesn't, I'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, we've come to the end of the show, so I want to say thank you to obviously yourself, Shahan, and also to Mike for joining us. It's been really good to chat football, and obviously to Reese as well, who came on earlier. Just before we do wrap it, Mike, do you want to shout out any socials that you have?
Yep, my Twitter handle, I should have written it as my name. Novice at this, obviously, is at EagleEyeView29. And my website is eagleeyeview29.com, where I do my interviews that I write out. They're all on there. I do like a player of the season for the last couple of seasons as well. And I'm a player sponsor, so that's all kept on my website.
Fantastic. And yourself, Shahan?
Yep. So there's my Twitter there, at Shahan. I've just put on the YouTube comments of my Instagram handle, which is at ShahanXShahan, and the I shared earlier on again the YouTube comments the link to the Vixen Cast. Our first episode was meant to be this Sunday against Coventry United, but for the game against Coventry United, but we don't know if that game's still going ahead or not. So we'll have our first episode probably after the away game against Blackburn next week, if that's the case. I don't know if whoever's the admin for the YouTube wants to share my comments up on screen, but so your watchers can find it there. But Shahan, that's the main one on Twitter, on Instagram as well, and Vixen Cast.
Brilliant, yeah. And speaking of Coventry, actually, tomorrow's show, we're putting on a one-off special, such is the situation. Myself and Gareth are joined by Tom Gary of The Telegraph, and we've also got Paul on as well, who is the Radio Coventry commentator. He commented on the women's games. We're actually doing a big show, so we've got a sort of 2-hour special. So we've got the first hour is the four of us, and then John, you're coming on for the second part of the show, aren't you, with Rich Laverty? So talking about obviously all the ongoings from the 23rd of December when it was announced Coventry will be liquidated to now looking like they're saved. Tom's wrote a few pieces on this, so massively looking forward to that. He's going to be able to provide sort of more information, more ins and outs, more on the potential new owner, what happens to players, will there be any point sanctions, things like that. So make sure you jump in on that tomorrow. That'll be 7 p.m. We will get everything obviously tweeted out as normal, but that is a special one-off. Thank you to everybody as well for tuning in the comments, and we'll catch you tomorrow evening.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you very much.